We'll keep on this one with truth or fake. Vedika Bahel is waiting by the big board. Vedika, good evening to you. The fallout of this latest Epstein file dump continues. As we've been hearing, multiple high-profile figures have been mentioned, including the ones that Philip and I were talking about, but also the usual ones: Bill Gates, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, and so on, even Donald Trump. But internet users are widely sharing false photos of Zoran Mamdani and his mother with Jeffrey Epstein. Tell us about this.
Well, Mark, it seems that Zoran Mamdani and his family have been caught in the crossfire following this massive Epstein file dump released by the Department of Justice. And this comes after his mother, Mira Nair, the acclaimed film director, creator of films such as Monsoon Wedding and The Namesake, after she was named as a film party guest in an email to Epstein. And internet users have been sharing some outlandish claims and fake photos about it. So let's take a look at those reactions. Well, these are the images that have been widely shared by internet users online, claiming to show Mira Nair and a young Zoran Mamdani, either as a child or as a baby, pictured with Jeffrey Epstein, along with Bill Clinton, Epstein's accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeff Bezos, and the like. And many of these posts therefore imply that Mamdani has more devious political connections, or imply that he has been elected due to his mother's influence with Epstein. Now, another viral false claim, possibly the most outlandish of them all, is the claim that Mamdani is in fact the illegitimate son of Jeffrey Epstein due to his mother's alleged close relationship with him. And that's what was shared by far-right conspiracy theorist Alex Jones to his over 4 million followers on X. It was also shared by an account called USA News, an account that, on Truth or Fake, we often see this account sharing more and more fake news as well. But as we can see here, it racked up over 22 million views, so we can really see the reach on this false story. Now, internet users further escalated this conspiracy theory even further when they pointed out that before she met Zoran Mamdani's father, Mahmoud Mamdani, Mira Nair was in fact married to a man called Mitch Epstein, a man who has no relation to Jeffrey Epstein, but just happens to share the same name. But yes, this was used to escalate and push that false claim even further. But what I can tell you is that those images that we're seeing and these rumours, they are very much fabricated and they are not to be believed.
OK, explain to us and show us how we can see that these photographs are not authentic. They are bogus. Show us.
Well, that's because, Mark, they're made with artificial intelligence, and there's a lot of things, in fact, that don't add up. Now, these AI pictures were first shared by this account called DFF, which calls itself openly a parody account. And this is an account that shares hundreds, if not thousands, of AI-generated images, some of them more and more ridiculous by the day, in order to rack up views, rack up engagement, and get those clicks. And this same account has, in fact, capitalized on the fact that the false images that it's created is now going viral. It's proudly talking about how much money it's made for people this week on X. It's sharing and posting retweets about the fact it can't believe people are believing it, about how the account feels that it's broken the internet. In fact, the account is now continuing to share even more AI slop, as you can see here, showing Mamdani in the womb during a sonograph, in order to even more and even further exacerbate these false claims. But in terms of how we can tell that these are AI generated, in fact, there is a pretty visible hint that they're not authentic right there on the screen. We can see a very clear watermark, DFF, linking back to our AI account right there in the middle of Mira Nair's dress. We can also see it here on Bill Clinton's shirt, also hidden up here in the corner. And conveniently, none of the accounts that are reposting this and sharing this have not mentioned that watermark that is visible. But it's not just a physical watermark. There's also a digital watermark present. Google's Synth ID digital watermark has been detected in the images, which points to us that these images were likely created using Google's own AI tools. Now, lastly, the final thing that doesn't add up is that the email in which Mira Nair is mentioned at being the guest at the party, that email is dated from 2009. And Zoran Mamdani was born in 1991, which means that he was 18 at the time that his mother went to this party. And this is something that DFF, the account DFF, also admits to, saying that you guys failed and I purposely made him a baby. But it's, again, that's something that people sharing these images have not thought about at all.
Indeed, somebody's idea of a joke. Perhaps, but that's not that funny, really, is it? So tell us, what do we know about the email in which his mother was mentioned? Is this true or fake? Tell us.
Well, that part is true. His mother was mentioned in an email to Jeffrey Epstein by his publicist, Peggy Siegel. Her name came up in the context of an after-party taking place at Ghislaine Maxwell's townhouse, an after-party for film. Now, the email also says that Jeff Bezos and Bill Clinton were also present, but she's referred to as a guest. And the document makes no accusations towards Mira Nair or gives any evidence of deeper connections to Jeffrey Epstein or having a closer relationship with him or any paternity or any probes or anything like that. I also want to point out that the email, as I said, is dated from 2009, the same year that Mira Nair directed a film called Amelia that starred Hilary Swank and Richard Gere, two people that are also listed in the email as being at this party, implying that it is a promotional event for her film. But conveniently also, these two stars are also listed as being at the party, but conveniently they haven't been targeted with AI photos or false claims or paternity claims or any claims about having any links to Epstein. So I think what we can surmise here that this is at the heart of this story story. It is a parody account that has created these AI-generated images. This has been amplified by far-right conspiracy theorist accounts like Alex Jones, and this has continued to spread falsehoods online.
There are so many things going on, Vedeka, aren't there? Because people clearly are seeing what happens. Some are taking it for face value, but others are really carving out their own agenda and using it for their own purposes, and that's what you've exposed. Vedeka, thank you very much indeed for...
Need a loan? Go to ... loans. Need a loan? Go to ... loans.
Are you tired of frequently switching between reading glasses, computer glasses, and sunglasses? Do you wish to find a pair of glasses that can solve all your vision problems once and for all? We present to you the revolutionary smart autofocus glasses from Germany.
Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, former South African President Jacob Zuma crops up in the US State Department's latest Epstein file drop. Published emails related to the late US sex offender suggest that Epstein helped Zuma arrange a dinner with a Russian model just days after the leader had banqueted at Buckingham Palace in London. Also, years after the last devastating regional conflict, and Tigrayans living in northern Ethiopia are increasingly worried that they could tip back into war as clashes between federal troops and regional forces continue into Monday.
Well, it's eye-popping stuff, really. And in addition to the tip-offs to Jeffrey Epstein that you've been listing, we've just discovered another one that looks like he almost had an inside track into drafting legislation at one point, particular terminology that he wanted. And there is a telling line in some of these communications, almost a catchphrase for Peter Mandelson when he's passing stuff on to Jeffrey Epstein, and it doesn't make him look very innocent. He says, "Please protect." One of the other striking things about this entire story is that the sums of money don't look enormous. The money that appeared to go to Lord Mandelson's partner, not Mr. Yet, and Peter Mandelson, though he claims no knowledge of that, don't look vast. But of course, people will be suspicious. This was all about storing up favours for contacts that would happen perhaps post the political career. As you said, we now have a potential for a police investigation. The Cabinet Secretary is being asked to investigate what went on. Amongst his investigations will be, which email was Peter Mandelson using? Was it his private one? Nothing should have gone to his private one if it was government business. If it was a government one, well, then some of the staff working for him should have known what was happening. As you said, this doesn't reflect well on Keir Starmer. It means that a problem he thought had largely been banished is back to haunt him, but also his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, who played a big role in not just appointing Peter Mandelson, but we think in slightly prolonging his time in that Washington job when many people thought it was up. Peter Mandelson is a man with an enormous sense of political history, and amongst the many elements of this disgrace is the government now looking at a law to try to remove disgraced peers. It could be known perhaps in future as the Mandelson Act.
Great trip, now heading home.
If Keir Starmer thought today was going to be an opportunity to sell the benefits of his trip to China, fate had other ideas. 7 months after installing Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the United States, Keir Starmer sacked him over his connections to the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Today, as even more compromising messages between the two were revealed, Keir Starmer handed out still more punishment.
As the House knows, Peter Mandelson is no longer a member of the Labour Party, having resigned his membership last night, and the House may wish to know that disciplinary action was underway by the Labour Party prior to his resignation. The Prime Minister believes, as does the government, that Peter Mandelson should not retain his membership of the House of Lords or use his title.
For Ronaldo and me to be here, it's literally a dream come true.
That last great job in government has turned into a nightmare. A special bill could now be rushed through Parliament to strip Peter Mandelson and future peers who fall into disrepute of their titles. The leaks of inside information to Jeffrey Epstein carried on into the last hours of his ministerial career after the 2010 general election. Peter Mandelson tipped off Jeffrey Epstein that he'd persuaded Gordon Brown he didn't have enough MPs to form a government. And he revealed to Jeffrey Epstein that a €500 billion bank bailout was about to be announced. Much contact had preceded that.
McDelivery? You in?
I'm in.
I'm in. McNuggets for me. Medium meal.
Yeah, I'm in.
I'm in. McCrispy.
McDelivery.
Big chicken sandwich. I'm in.
There's nothing quite like a McDelivery. You in? Oh, I'm in.
Up to now, the Epstein saga has been a story of sexual depravity by reckless men and the seductive power of big money. But now, with the latest revelations from the Epstein files, this modern morality tale enters the world of power politics. There's Peter Mandelson, who last night quit the Labour Party. Keir Starmer has called on him to leave the House of Lords as well. Also today, jaw-dropping allegations of leaks from the heart of Downing Street during the financial crisis and calls from opposition leaders Kemi Badenoch and Stephen Flynn of the SNP for criminal investigation into Lord Mandelson. We'll discuss him in more detail later in the show. But let me begin tonight with something that I think is even more important, even more extraordinary. Growing suspicions of a Russian connection. Epstein had apparently limitless supplies of money. Where did it come from? He procured many young Russian girls. Why was that so easy for him? The files released show more than 1,000 documents which referred to Vladimir Putin, and 9,000 referring to Moscow. The FBI says that he was Putin's wealth manager. Epstein filed all of his messages. He filmed and taped powerful Western leaders in deeply compromising situations. Why? Doesn't it make you wonder at least about the possibility of a KGB operation big enough to ensnare former presidents and prime ministers and the leaders of some of the world's most powerful companies? I know, this all sounds impossibly sensational, conspiratorial, a James Bond villain plot in real life. But there is so much smoke billowing out of one of the most extraordinary establishment crises in my lifetime that it is well worth exploring whether there might be also a genuinely ominous backstory.
Resigning from Labour isn't enough. Now the PM wants Peter Mandelson out of the Lords. Keir Starmer orders an urgent review of the former minister's ties with Jeffrey Epstein as opposition parties call for a full inquiry.
Peter Mandelson needs to come clean about every single thing that has happened, and we want to see an investigation into how he was appointed.
Also this lunchtime, the serial killer Steve Wright pleads guilty to a 6th murder of a 17-year-old 26 years ago. The former Emmerdale star Charlie Webb on her mother being diagnosed with early onset dementia. And
the Grammy goes to Olivia Dean.
Grammys glory for British stars, including Olivia Dean.
I'm up here as a granddaughter of an immigrant. I'm a product of bravery, and I think those people deserve to be celebrated.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hussain.
Good afternoon. As more awkward details of Peter Mandelson's links to Jeffrey Epstein emerge, in the past hour, Downing Street has said Keir Starmer believes the former minister should no longer be a member of the House of Lords. Just last night, Lord Mandelson resigned from the Labour Party, saying he didn't want to cause it further embarrassment. Today, the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, said there needs to be a full Cabinet Office investigation into the relationship between Lord Mandelson and the late paedophile. And there are fresh questions too for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who is under pressure to testify in the United States. We'll hear from our royal editor, Chris Shipp, and a former Buckingham Palace insider shortly. First, let's speak to our political correspondent, Louisa James, in Westminster. Louisa, the Prime Minister clearly feels Lord Mandelson's resignation last night wasn't enough.
Yeah, well, Nina, after months and months really of being accused of not being decisive enough on this issue, the Prime Minister's spokesperson was very clear in the last hour that Keir Starmer believes that Lord Mandelson should not be a member of the Lords or use the title, and that there will be an investigation by the Cabinet Office into all contact between Lord Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein while Mandelson was a minister. But even as that briefing was happening, more and more revelations were emerging as journalists sift through that pile of new files that have been released in the States. The latest allegations that Lord Mandelson sent highly sensitive emails containing things like government policy onto Jeffrey Epstein. He hasn't addressed those allegations specifically, but there is also this now infamous photograph of him standing in nothing but a T-shirt and underwear, which he says he has no memory of. And then there are suggestions that he took $75,000 from Jeffrey Epstein, something he says he has no record or recollection of. In his resignation statement that came late last night, Lord Mandelson says, "I do not wish to cause further embarrassment to the Labour Party, and I am therefore stepping down from membership of the party." Now, the Labour response this morning implies that it wasn't entirely his decision and that disciplinary procedures were already underway. But the Conservatives are saying this lunchtime that this calls Keir Starmer's judgment into question.
This is yet another mess that the Prime Minister has got himself into. He had no reason to appoint Peter Mandelson, was warned again and again and again that this man should not be appointed. There is a lot that needs to be looked into, including investigating how he ever came to be appointed, and all levers which can be pulled in order to remove him from public office should be looked into, including removal from the House of Lords.
Louisa, how likely is it that Peter Mandelson will actually be removed from the Lords?
Well, it would be complicated and unprecedented, essentially involving a new piece of legislation specifically to strip him of that title. And Downing Street says the Prime Minister has asked for that to be looked at urgently, but that he doesn't have the power to do it himself, and essentially is putting the onus on the House of Lords, saying it must urgently update its procedures to make it easier to remove Lords who've brought the House into disrepute.
Louisa.
Sir Keir Starmer says Lord Mandelson should no longer sit in Parliament following further revelations about his links to the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. Downing Street said this morning the Prime Minister believes the man he named as his US ambassador just a year ago should no longer be a member of the Lords or use the title, although he doesn't have the power to remove him. Number 10 has asked Cabinet Secretary Sir Chris Wormald to conduct an urgent review of all available information regarding his contacts with Epstein during his period as a government minister. The document suggests Epstein paid Mandelson $75,000 in 3 separate transactions in 2003 and 4, and then later in 2009, while Business Secretary, and he was lobbying at that time on behalf of Epstein and his clients. There are reports that he forwarded on sensitive government emails around the time of the financial crisis. Mr. Mandelson says he has no record of these payments and believes the documents are false. Lauren Moss reports.
Personal pictures in his pants. These images of Lord Mandelson, the former Labour cabinet minister, is among 180,000 photographs contained in the latest